John Alexander here with Representative Ken Upchurch, the gentleman from Wayne County. Ken, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well.
We're here talking about and talking with some of the legislators about how they feel the 2019 session went. How do you feel it went?
I think overall we had a good session. It was, of course, the short session. We compacted a lot of material in that 30 days, but I think at the end of the day was a very productive session because we deal with a lot of cleanup stuff. The tax reform bill that we did last year, obviously when you do something major, there's some unintended consequences.
Right.
So we came back this session and did some cleanup measures on that before we go again in the 2020 session.
The effect on the nonprofits was really one of the major impacts that wasn't accounted for.
Yes, and that was one of the things we told everybody when we passed the tax reform measure in the 2018 session, that there will be some unintended consequences, and it's something that we'll go back in and fix in 2019. That has kind of been the pattern because when you're dealing with a tax structure as antiquated as Kentucky's is, we have to take it in take a slow approach to it and try not to mess things up too much. But then as we work our way through it, we'll get better as we go.
You talked about a lot of the cleanup measures from the 2018 session. Talk about sessions just in general. I'm new here. Let's talk about that just in general. Is each session kind of its own entity, kind of its own beast? The 2019 different from the 2018, and then 2020 next year will obviously be a different feeling than the one from this year.
Each session is the ones that I've been involved in. They have their own characteristic.
Right.
Some are, the 2018 session was different because we dealt with the pension issue. The 2017 was entirely different than any session that I had been in because it was the first time that the Republicans had been in the majority.
Right.
And so it had its own flavor. And so each one of them are different, and they can be defined differently.
How many have you been around for?
This was my 19th year.
Right.
Not counting, the special sessions, 19
right.
regular sessions. And I've lost track of how many different special sessions we've been in.
Right. Well, what are some of the bills that maybe you're most proud of from this? Even though it was a short session, there was a lot of legislation that was passed.
Well, and again, I'm always been one to think that for every bill we pass, we should repeal a bill.
Right.
But there was a lot of legislation passed this session, and I think it had to do with the fact that the 2018 session was a budget year, and as a result of that, we had to come back in and adjust some things during this session. House Bill 4 was a bill that had actually passed both chambers last year, and it wasn't House Bill 4 during the 2018 session. It was House Bill 4 this year. Passed both sessions. Unfortunately, we passed it on the last day of the veto session, and the governor vetoed it.
Right.
And so we revisited that bill this year and got it through before the veto recess. And the governor vetoed it again, but we had the opportunity to come back and override that veto. And I think that's probably one of the most significant bills from a legislative independence standpoint that we passed, that's been passed since I've been up here. Of course, it gives the legislative body more control or more say in the regulatory process. At the end of the day, we pass the legislation. The administration, the cabinets, they promulgate the regulations. But in doing so, a lot of times legislative intent may not be followed, or they create the bureaucracy creates its own animal.
Yeah.
And so, but at the end of the day, the legislature and individual legislators are the ones who are questioned and have to answer to the constituents about bills that we pass. But then, you know, we may not have any control over a regulation. So with House Bill 4, that gives us a lot more control over that process. It gives us more time to review a regulation. We can find it deficient now, and we could before, but we've got a recall type provision in there where we can ratify a deficiency and start that process all anew.
Was there any legislation that you're proud of as far as your own home district goes for either Pulaski County or Wayne County or McCurry County?
Well, House Bill 352, is commonly known as the Continental Refinery Bill. That I think is going to be a major shot in the arm for not only Pulaski County, but you know, 52nd District and all of southeastern Kentucky.
Right.
With helping to get the Continental Refinery, or the former Somerset refinery, back up and going, and refining oil into gasoline in our area, because you know, it's going to create close to 100 jobs in the area, and so we had to get some provisions done on some overweight trucking, and we managed to shepherd that through the transportation committees in both the House and Senate, and make a case for that, along with the economic impact that it will have in the area. So,
certainly the economic impact with that many jobs coming to Somerset, much needed jobs in the area.
Yeah, and you know, I think that's going to be, you know, the economic impact is going to be felt all across the region, and you know, that's, as House Republicans, we want to increase the economy, increase job opportunities for small businesses, large businesses, and I think that's been the focus of this caucus since we came into power.
Right.
Is to create an atmosphere to where jobs and opportunity can flourish in,
right.
in the areas, or in the Commonwealth.
Are there any bills you're working on now that maybe even going into the interim and then the 2020 session?
Well, we're trying to get over the 2019 session, I guess.
Right, right.
We are, there's several bills that we'll be looking at. Of course, obviously the number one issue on everyone's mind is pension.
Of course.
And so we'll have to, that's one thing that we'll be definitely be taking you know, more looks at as we try to get the unfunded liability under control.
John Alexander here with Representative Ken Upchurch, the gentleman from Wayne County. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.